Marshelle.
Hi, Bridget. This episode,
We're going to talk about
what are the things that are going on in our lives?
it's kind of like maybe this might be like,
Yeah, sorta, kinda.
life lesson.
Hi.
Hi,
Hello.
I'm Bridget.
I'm Marshelle.
This is Yeah, Sorta, Kinda.
Yeah, sorta, kinda, indeed.
We're at, what episode are we? Pop quiz.
15?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, look at that. And this is our 5th in quarantine?
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes, queen. Our 5th week in quarantine. So out of the studio in our own homes, making a podcast happen.
Making a podcast happen. Absolutely. How you doing?
I feel really good.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Me too. I'm clean, so I feel...
Yeah, I showered.
This is the first time I put makeup on since the last time we shot.
Yes, same.
And I'm digging it. I'm okay
I
with
definitely showered between then and now.
it. Yeah, I did that too.
But I
yeah.
had to honestly think about it for a second.
I did too, actually, when I was getting ready. I'm like, did I bathe? Yeah.
And I did something else important. I went to the grocery store for the first time in a month and got some rations. So anyway.
There you go. I still haven't. I went out before, but I haven't gone out since. Like,
I feel such a level of peace that it's almost weird.
right now?
Yeah.
In
And
this
another
moment?
thing, yeah, but also all day. And another thing that was, and I'm not judging any experience I'm having. I'm just observing. I also was observing of myself starting about yesterday or the day before. All of a sudden, I was loving the solitude.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was really something that felt... I guess I'm realizing I'm having a new appreciation for this time. That's not to take away from the disaster that is this situation, but I'm trying to really take my own advice and work on my mindset about it. And, you know, for all we know, the normal that we find after all this is over could be beyond better than anything we've ever known.
I've been thinking that. I've been wondering that.
Right?
And pondering what will that be like and what will that look like and how, and maybe it is going to be better. Maybe we'll all be in a different place, in some way.
Right. I mean, there's definitely some things, measurable things happening in nature already, just by us taking a break as humans.
That's the best part.
That's pretty telling. And it was stuff that needed to get fixed. And I'm not saying everything's permanently fixed, but it's promising.
I was thinking about, being a child, like when you're a kid, getting that sense of wonder back and that sense of awe. Because, we were discussing the other day how we keep seeing all these memes, or these posts about going within,
Yeah.
And they're like, okay, yeah, like, we both always sometimes have skepticism about things, but, not that we don't believe in it, but sometimes we don't necessarily.
There's like certain phrases when you hear them again and again, you kind of become numb to them. Like, well, what does that even mean? Go within. What does that even mean?
What does that even mean? Yeah, exactly, exactly. You roll your eyes and you dismiss it. But so I was thinking about that. Like, what does that really? And I was thinking a good way of maybe looking at it is asking everyone. Like, don't you ever haven't you experienced that nagging feeling within you of that there's just something that you're not looking at, that there's something missing, or maybe there's something off with your life, or maybe there's something where you get that sense of loneliness and you find yourself always looking online at, the internet or and like, what are we looking for?
Because I feel like that's the first kind of inkling that there's something there. Is when you feel this urge to constantly busy yourself, to constantly distract yourself.
Yeah.
I need to maybe even you want to unplug by getting drunk or, getting substances involved. If there's this knee-jerk reaction to distract, then that's almost, no, it's a guarantee that there's something else on the other side to look at further.
Right. Exactly. And, we were talking about how the quarantine, a lot of people are talking about how isn't causing relationship problems. It's causing you to, it's
revealing relationship problems.
Revealing, yeah, or what you've been ignoring or what
Right.
you've been in denial of. Even with yourself. Let's say you're not even in a relationship, but and so like just that, and I know I've experienced that nagging, like I've said it before. You and I talk about this stuff a lot, like that,
Yeah.
just that clawing away. And so what do you, and we were saying the other day, at first I said, like, what have you been neglecting? And you were like,
Right.
well, what's a different way of putting that? And it's, what could it actually be revealing
Right.
to you?
Well, the reason why I'm not one to like get on anyone for their phraseology except myself, but Marshelle and I are best friends, and it was almost more of a thought experiment because we had been talking so much about alignment and frequency and vibe. And I was thinking, oh, that's interesting. What's the word again you said?
Revealing or neglecting?
Neglecting. And I was like, man, neglecting, doesn't that sure has kind of a negative connotation. Like I feel guilty if I think I'm neglecting something.
That's what it was.
But if you go around the fringes of that concept and start to see that there's still the impulse to look further is still spot on. It's just what are you framing it in? And so then we started framing it in, what is this time revealing to us? And then all of a sudden I was like, oh shoot, that all of a sudden sounds like a mystery I get to solve, and that's kind of exciting. Back to the childlike wonder you brought up.
Exactly. And as we've said before, being, you say the quote because you always get it right. I always want to change it, but we're spiritual beings.
Oh, we're not human beings having a spiritual experience. We're spiritual beings having a human experience.
Damn it. See, I always want to say physical experience, but yeah, a human experience. And, we talk about vibration and frequency. So maybe there's a reason you're drawn to look within, that it's not just something. I think we dismiss it because we think, oh, it's just silly, or there's really nothing there. I'm going to go binge watch a TV show. I'm going to go out with my friends. But now we can't do that. Now we are forced to be by ourselves or with, people. And, how couldn't you help me? My mind stopped.
Well, what came into my mind as you were saying that, I don't know if this is what you want me to help you with, is
I don't know. My mind totally stopped.
A couple, 2 mornings ago, I was sitting out on my patio having some coffee, and I was just writing. And I was writing about how I am just inherently kind of a seeker in life.
Yes.
And I've always been really driven to seek and to discover. And it's a part of my personality, and it's a part of my spirituality. And I can't imagine it being any other way. And then I was starting to think, well, maybe, once you and I talked, I was starting to think, well, maybe what people are distracting themselves from is this natural desire to seek, but we cover it up because I think it's inherently a part of everybody's experience to their core, but that a lot of people ignore it, and a lot of people call it different things. Sometimes it's called, maybe people are calling it, it's your dream, it's your desires, it's your this or it's your that, but the idea that there's something within us that we connect to, that we can feel, and then we allow that to move us through the world, and that helps. It's like our guidance. I think that's universal.
I do too. I think we all have that. But it's, do we choose to sit in that discomfort because it's uncomfortable to look at what is possibly bothering me? And I'm not, or us, and I'm not saying a trauma, because you don't not necessarily everyone has been abused or had terrible experiences. But I think the whole point in being here in this life is to be a seeker.
I think. Sorry, continue your thought.
That it's, and the reason we're driven to look for that is because there is something there.
Yeah.
If there wasn't something to find, if we weren't meant to discover something within ourselves, if there wasn't something hidden that we had to look for, then we wouldn't be driven to do that.
And I think part of what's uncomfortable about it is sometimes our view of the world doesn't match up with the reality of what that indicates. Like if we truly have that core and we truly are meant to seek and find, if you've decided that that doesn't fit in with your worldview, that, I don't care what you say, you will always have some discomfort there because you're denying what I believe, and I know you believe, is a true aspect of our experience.
Yeah. Yeah. I think we're here for a reason.
Yeah.
Even if you're an atheist and you don't believe in something more supernatural or a higher power, you're still here you're here. So why are you here?
Yeah.
So explore this human existence and experience as much as possible, because I think you're doing yourself a disservice.
Right.
If you're not, then
beginner's mind is something we've talked about before, where if you decide you know everything, you're not open to being wrong, and you're not open to new ideas or new possibilities. If you have it all figured out, then there's really no point to, looking at anything else.
Yeah.
I choose to go through this world with wonder and knowing that there's always more to discover. And even the things we say now, we'll find other perspectives, you and I.
Or
there's
we'll
like a
find
core
more
to
depth.
it. We'll find more depth. There's just, there'll be more to it. Or maybe sometimes our perception of it will shift a little bit. But because we're speaking from the core of the truth of something that's like very individual and an experience that we've spent a lot of time cultivating, this connection to our inner truth, I don't think it's going to change that much.
No.
I think it's just going to, because that part will remain the same.
Yeah,
it's almost hard to put these things into words, but God, we're trying.
We're trying, so we might be stumbling. So just try to follow us. You know what I mean? Try to give us a grain of salt here. The way that we look at life, what you were saying, that it can. I was reading the other day that it can be a habit. The way that we're perceiving reality.
Absolutely,
shall we say?
believe that.
Do you know what I mean? And so when there's that true us, that answer, because I really do believe everything that we want to know is deep within. I mean, I really believe that. God, ourselves, why you're here. But do you allow yourself to hear and follow through? And then once you do, I think it's an endless array of wonder and depth and a new way of looking at life that's exciting.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to let go of this habit of what would be a habit?
Well, what I was just now picturing is you're walking down the street, maybe you're going through an alleyway, and so there's buildings up ahead of you. And are you anticipating something terrible being around the corner? Or are you anticipating something new and exciting and beautiful around the corner? It's how do you move through the day, moment by moment? Yeah. Literally, what is your mindset and how are you feeling? And so habitually, I think you work towards, well, sometimes I think I'm more of working on and paying attention to how I'm feeling. And sometimes I'm working on and paying attention to more to what I'm thinking about. But they all work together. But yeah, habitually, maybe I grumble and complain about my dishes a lot. So that's a good example. I've since been chipping away at doing the dishes. And I've just been doing it from a place of like, oh, I love having a clean kitchen.
Yeah, that's a positive way of looking at it.
Just that little shift has made doing the dishes like not a big deal.
It's the shift that we would talk about.
And sometimes it's the stupidest, silliest thing. Like to me, that's almost dumb. Like, because it's like, is it really that easy? Yeah. It really is.
Yeah, I think life is pretty simple, honestly. In some ways, we're just the ones that make it hard, or we think it can't be that easy. It can't be that. But then once you do find this new sense of self and this new wonder with the world, how do you maintain that going through life? And a good example of that is once all this is done, how do we maintain whatever it is we found, going back into the new normal, whatever that's going to be, going back into the workforce? Because some people can blow this off and be like, oh yeah, of course, that sounds great. That sounds so... My dad would call it very California. It's very California to try to go within, try to find yourself, or whatever. But,
well, I think a lot of times people accuse this way of approaching life as being in denial.
Mm-hmm.
But the point isn't to deny what is or to make it wrong. It's more of, are you going to, because the fact is we're moving towards, whatever future there is. And are we going to fixate on the worst of the circumstances, or are we going to look at the best of the circumstances? I sure as hell find it more enjoyable to think about the positive things, not to deny that the other things exist. But have you ever noticed that when you only think about those negative experiences, you sure don't feel very good about it?
Mm-mm. And you seem to have more negative experiences.
Right.
That can be a side effect of that.
Is there anything wrong with maybe acknowledging something bad that happens but not staying in it?
Exactly. Exactly.
Like maybe it's something you pass through, but you move beyond it, and then it's like grief. Grief is not a state that we're meant to stay in forever, and our loved ones that pass over would never want that for us. They don't want us to not enjoy the life that's unfolding before us because they're no longer with us. They want us to enjoy life. Grief, I'm just using grief as an example, but
no, it's a good example.
It could be anything.
Mm-hmm. And we were talking about raising vibration, like in our last episode, about the frequency and sound. That's how you raise your vibration, is to look at what is it that maybe I could change, or what is it that seems to be lacking in my life, or are you, not being kind to yourself? I
would say a higher vibrational way of saying looking at what is lacking, look at what it is you want more of. Like focus on really focus on the having of the thing that you want, and getting into this, so you and I are actors, so it's almost like an acting exercise, like to just pretend with so much certainty that you're passionately and blissfully feeling this imagined thing that you want, but living in that moment like it's real. That is a really powerful exercise.
It is. And it's amazing. The body believes it. It goes with you, and like that feeling of joy that we're imagining. We make these circumstances in our mind,
that's like biofeedback stuff. Like that's scientifically measured, where that your mind is so powerful that they can plug you into all sorts of biofeedback machinery and study that your body will fire based on what your mind is thinking. Have you ever noticed in like maybe a terrible dream you have, you wake up and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm sweating and my heart's pounding and my body didn't know that wasn't real. There's
it seems so vivid, so real, and you're just like, huh,
Well, and the reason to bring that up is the cat has never, he's never presented himself during a podcast before. What was I saying? But like, bringing that up to say, look, there's something to this, and here's an experiment you can try. Try to get into the feeling space of something, and it's kind of like fake it till you make it too. It's like if you can laugh, like a fake laugh, but actually find yourself really laughing, doesn't being in that mood sound better than being mad about something?
I think so.
I have a cat kind of digging his claws into me. Okay. Come here, bud.
And the beauty of that too, that childlike wonder that I was talking about, like how we experience life, like everything was so new and fresh and pure, and like you said, the beginner's mind. If you can keep that, and we've talked about that I think in the first episode, the gravity of this life, how like all these experiences and just the weight, I don't know how else to put that, just seems to like hold you down. But if we can go back to, I think that's a key to life. I think that's the magic in life. Oh, hi, Ash.
Oh, God. We can't do the shoulder thing. Yeah, he wants to climb on my shoulders, but my shoulders are bare because of the shirt I'm wearing, so we're not going to do that.
This is going to be fun, isn't it? Well, those of you who aren't watching, Bridget has her cat, who's a very large, beautiful gray cat, sort of hugging her right now. She's picked him up.
He is a big boy.
He's a very big boy. He's sweet.
Come here. Come here. Don't reveal. Nope. This was a bad idea, but we're going to work with it. Don't.
He's stuck in her headbuds. I mean, her headbuds. Her ear pods there.
Lay down.
Her cords.
Here we go. Okay.
Ooh.
That was close. His foot went down my shirt. We almost splashed a bra, but we did not. We're good.
What is that? The wardrobe malfunction?
Yeah, we almost had a wardrobe malfunction.
A wardrobe malfunction. I'm looking at this book.
What book? Oh, you don't have to say. It's a secret book. We're not going to tell you. We each have a copy.
Yeah, Einstein. Because we've been talking about him lately.
Or as I like to call him, Einstein.
Einstein. She did it again today. It was cute when we were talking earlier. And I love that personally.
I kind of do it on purpose.
Einstein remarked, I don't believe
Einstein. You just said it twice.
And let me say it. Einstein remarked that only idiots are incapable of wonder.
Did you mean to call him Einstein?
Einstein? No,
Yes.
it's Einstein. Einstein. God damn it. You got into my head. Einstein. Am I saying that right now? Einstein. Damn you, Bridget. Einstein remarked that only idiots are incapable of wonder or incapable of saying his names. That would be myself right now. And the truth is hidden so as to be found. That's my profound statement for the day.
Yeah, so going within, I guess to summarize, coincides with seek and you shall find.
Yeah. Knock and the door will be answered. I think that's it.
I think we've looked that one up before, and there are so many different versions because that's a Bible quote, and it's different depending on what version of the Bible you're looking at. But I think the one we liked was the King James version. I don't know.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I kind of remember that. So what else you got? What else do you want to talk about? You want to go into that more?
Well, I feel like there's a part of me that wants to ground it in reality even more, but I don't know how to do that.
You're better at it than I am.
Oh, I don't know about that.
Oh, she is.
I guess I've just been, this all feels like an experiment. And when I say this, I mean everything. The quarantine, life, trying to find a new normal, a new routine, all of this stuff. And then also just trying to, take our own advice and apply it to our life, and then
walk the talk.
Yeah, walk the talk, and then bring it to the table during podcast time. All I know is that we need to be nicer to ourselves. We really need to be kinder to ourselves as individuals, but others too. But I think it starts individually with ourselves.
I agree.
Be nice with yourself, and then it'll be easier to be nice to others. And I think that I don't know. I don't know sometimes how to convey how impactful these subtle changes are in the thinking, but I just know that it's been life-changing for me.
Yeah. Yeah, the stuff that we talk about are things that we've experienced, and, and we're still learning, of course.
Yeah.
But, bringing it back to the basics, I think that's another way of putting it. Like, just smell the flowers, feel the breeze on your face. Even if something really bad is going on in your life, I know those moments have always brought me out of it for like a second. Like, there would be like, I could be in the deepest state of grief ever, but I would see maybe a hummingbird at my window. And then he would
find
fly.
comfort in that, right?
Yeah, and there was always some sort of grace in that. A sense of peace.
I suppose it's almost like I can hear it. I can almost hear the skepticism of somebody out there being like, bullshit. I get it, because I remember being in a really different state in my life, and everything being a lot harder. And I would say the biggest difference between then and now, other than circumstances, is that I decided to really focus on what I wanted and what I was grateful for now, but also what I wanted, and not so much what I knew to be true in those moments, because I had already gotten habitual about seeing the things that I knew were real in my circumstances that were quote unquote bad. So I had to get out of that mode by focusing on the simplest things I was grateful for. And I think that's where I started. And then I got better and better at focusing in on what I want. And I would say I'm still working on that part, the focusing on what I want. But I think the gratitude has gotten more habitual now than it's ever been in my life.
I agree with that 100%. You were talking about focusing on what you want. I remember, and you call them thought experiments, but it was definitely like an experiment for me. I remember, and that's kind of a little bit of that, what people would call law of attraction or whatever. And I don't know. But I would, and this is true, and it didn't happen right away, but I would talk about the type of relationship I wanted, or an acting gig that I wanted and what it would be like. Not the acting gig, but just to be working, let's say. And what I wanted people to say or to feel or to, you want someone to think that you're talented, or whatever, let's say. And I would be really specific about the relationship that I wanted, not the person. I wouldn't think about, because, maybe that person isn't the right person, but I would think about how they would treat me and how we would be companions. And he would say this, and I would be the love of his life, and he would think blah, 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 like all this stuff, the most beautiful woman in the, whatever, that they've ever seen, whatever, the stuff that you want or whatever it is. And I would I would let myself just go there, and I would write it down too. And it was kind of an experiment as well, because I was like, why not? Why not try this? Because nothing else has been making me feel better. Nothing else has been really working. And I swear, it might have taken a really long time. It might have taken like 5 years, 6 years, 10 years, whatever. The exact quotes that I would write or say out loud, because I do think there's something about speaking, would be said back to me. And I know I've told you about that. And I would be floored, and I would have that feeling of like, you just get chills right when that would happen. And I'd be like, whoa. And I would forget that I'd ever said it. I would forget that I ever even thought it. And then, boom, somebody would say it, or Tommy would say things, or the way our relationship just like took off, and being on shows that I've been on that have failed, but that people would, at least that were of that I believed in, would say these positive things about my acting or whatever. So that way you don't feel like, okay, well, maybe I need to do something else because maybe I suck at this. So you would have people, that I respected be like, no, for real. And they didn't have any reason to say it, but they would literally say what I had written. I had hoped that the type of actor that I could be. There you go. That's what I'm trying to say.
You got really specific and really clear about what you wanted. And then it was literally like the evidence was there. It was showing up. Like people would say specific phrases.
Exactly.
And specific circumstances, just like you had imagined, would show up. I have something to say for the people that might be able to relate to my experience of having no freaking clue what I wanted. My mantra became, I want to know what I want. That's where I had to start. I had to start with I want to know what I want, because I think it was where I was at circumstantially in my life. I think I was maybe a little bit numb, and I was out of touch. I was out of sync with my thoughts, and I had the bad habits. I hadn't gotten to the good habits yet. So I want to know what I want became my mantra. And
it can be as simple as that. But that feeling, allowing yourself to feel that and all that is matching the frequency of what you want.
I have a story, and then I'm kind of hesitant to tell it because two things. One, I don't know how it's going to be perceived. And the fear, I guess, the main fear would be that here's something that's so significant to me that was so dramatically life-changing that to somebody else on the outside might think it sounds really dumb.
There's always I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, but I think I should tell you anyway.
I think you should.
So, and forgive me for using the term like law of attraction, because I know that for some people that's like, oh yeah, right on, I'm all about that. And other people are like, oh God, not that.
Yeah, it's a turn off or whatever.
So
it's just a common phrase that we're going to use, and that because the truth of it, I don't care if you believe it or not, is frequency. You match the frequency. Einstein said it. Einstein.
I'm going to call it a thought experiment. I wanted to do a thought experiment, and I wanted to see if by doing this, something would show up in the physical world for me. And at the time, I was in a relationship with someone who I thought actually was pretty darn impressive when it came to like manifestation. Like this guy would want something and it would happen. And I was always really amazed by that. And so even though he was super skeptical about all this stuff, as far as I could tell, it worked for him. But I wanted it to work for me with certainty. So I said, let's try an experiment together, you and I, something that will come, when it comes true, it'll be so undeniably because we went through this experiment process that it's coming true in the physical world. And let's do it together so that we have a witness to it for when it happens.
That's cool.
So we said, okay, we sat in the living room. We're like, okay, let's start with just like a simple object. What should it be? We're like, okay, let's make it an apple. We're like, okay, an apple. What color should this apple be? Red, yellow, green? Let's make it green. So we're like, all right, let's manifest a green apple. Okay? That in such a unique way that at some point in the next, who knows, 4 weeks, 4 years, I don't know how long this stuff takes, but that this green apple will show up and it'll be so undeniably associated with this exercise that we'll know that this stuff works. So then we're like, okay, let's jump ahead to the moment when we find the apple. Let's hold it into our hands. And let's imagine the childlike wonder we feel at discovering that this stuff really works and that this stuff is really true. Okay, so we did this. We went through this whole exercise and really, like I'm emphasizing this a lot, but it's because it's so important, got into the feeling place. Like I could feel the weight of the apple in my hand and the true joy of it existing. All of that. We went about our day. Kind of forgot that happened. Went to the beach. Hung out at the beach for a few hours, started to get cold, decided to head back home. Side note, the trail to the beach, there's only one way to get up and one way to get down. It's like this little trail to the specific beach. So we're on our way up, and in the middle of the path, there is a green apple just sitting there in the middle of the path.
See?
This was 4 hours after we did the experiment. I was freaking floored. We just looked at each other like, and here's the thing.
You couldn't deny it.
As exciting as it was, it was also kind of terrifying because what I realized was the level of responsibility I have I'm responsible. I'm responsible for so much of what happens in my life. Like it made me have to take responsibility, which then became empowering. But there was a moment of like, oh my God.
I think that's scary for people sometimes.
Yeah.
I would, I'm sorry, go ahead.
The only other thing I was going to say is like, there's people who've had terribly awful victim things happen to them where they've been victimized. And of course, the last thing that they want to believe is that they had anything to do with attracting that to them.
I don't believe they did.
And it's really hard for me to I almost don't even want to address that because I don't want to take away from the beauty of the possibility of what everything else indicates. You know what I mean?
Maybe a good way of looking at it is matching that frequency and believing in that is what kind of pulls you out of the negativity of life. And I don't know if I'm expressing this properly, in that you're not bringing the negative. I don't believe that we bring the negative to it. I don't believe that we cause ourselves to be raped or whatever, or anything like that. I don't believe that. But, dude, I don't know how to explain
it's really hard to go down this road. I almost say there's other people that could probably explain circles around this aspect of it, but I don't know how to put it into words either. My thoughts on that particular aspect of it. except to say that no matter what's happened to you in your life, there's beauty to this way of approaching life.
Yeah.
And there's something to be learned from it. And that, I think it's worth trying.
Yeah, I think it's worth, because at the end of the day, or let's say at the end of our lives, if right at the end and you're looking at, I guarantee you there will be a clarity of like, whoa, I could have been happier. I could have been kinder. I could have, and what would it, that's what I'm saying. I finally got to that point in my life where, and I don't know if it's a good way of well, it works. I was almost more afraid. No, not almost. I was more afraid to not go for what I wanted than to sit and just be like, okay, I'm just going to stay in the status quo. I'm not going to, for example, break up with this guy or not, I'm just going to stay at this job instead of thinking I should be, doing something else, which is really within me to try. Like it wouldn't shut up. It's almost like a voice,
Yeah, and like a nagging.
Yeah. You were talking about the bringing the apple and all that. I've noticed whenever, and I think the more you start to believe in this, the more you start to follow your instincts, the more that will happen. And you're kind of like vibing at that frequency a little bit. I've noticed at times I would be like, when I'm like that, just something the most obvious thing I thought about, like just this silly little, oh gosh, I wish I had some juice. I forgot to stop and get some juice. I could walk into like a yoga studio and someone would be like, here, you want this juice? I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, oh my God, no, thanks, or like whatever,
Well, to try and offer a slight explanation for maybe why this apple thing happened so fast. I've heard it said, and this is the way I think of it is, as much as we're physical beings, there's a greater, broader part of us that's the non-physical aspect of it. Of us as individuals, we have this, but also as almost like let's just stick to that part. And that aspect of us, let's say exists in a different dimension. I really believe this.
I do too.
Is also manifesting along with us and is holding in... I don't want to, it's so hard not to put it into like human terms, but like is holding along with us that which is for our highest good. So say it's like a bank and funds are being put into it. There's that non-physical side of us that's pouring all these funds towards that which is for our greatest good. And then we're down here in the human form also putting in our funds, but sometimes we're tossing the coins out over there. But when we do get in alignment with what is best for us, it's like there's this like wealth just waiting for us to accept. So I'm all that to say, it's not just like, oh great, I'm thinking about a car accident and suddenly a car accident's going to happen.
Oh my God,
you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Since you used the example of getting a juice, but that's a positive thing. Like somebody giving you a free juice. Like
yeah. I mean, literally, I'd be like, wow. Like a little kid. I would feel like a little kid again. This is the best, man.
I want to say, like, I'm not like overwhelmingly self-conscious to talk about these topics, but there's a little part of me that doesn't like to try to put these things into words because it's kind of clunky and I'm used to talking to you about it, Marshelle, but you and I kind of have a shorthand for these types of conversations. It's really easy for us to get on the same page with one another, and this is a whole nother level to try to just put it out there. Whoa, sorry, my mic just did a weird thing. But just to put it out there and know that other people are going to be like, what in the world are you talking about? Or that's bullshit, or what? Cat feeder.
Oh.
Sorry.
It sounded like a saw from over here, like some buzz saw or whatever. It's also vulnerable because we're putting ourselves out there and you're very exposed. Yeah. And there's a lot of assholes out there who would like to be like, just because they can. They want to be contrary. Yeah. Well, then don't. Okay, I'm going to cuss Bridget's mother. Don't fucking listen. You know what I mean? Go someplace else. We're not asking you to like do that. But
I'm excited to hear from all those people that are like, yes, this is exactly the way they see life, or thank you for bringing this up, or you know what I mean? Because that's our main listeners.
we got such great response from the last episode about frequency and sound healing. And there's so much to that, you guys. I mean, and that's part of the thing. Like, we're not experts, so we're not necessarily going to be able to like go into like, but we can also be like, guys, get this, check this out, blah, 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 blah. The Nazis were blah, blah, like talking them into doing that. And what does that mean? But you can go and you can check this out, and then you can email us, and then we can have like another little conversation, It's like, because you can't sit here and what I love is when people are like, I'm sitting here yelling at you guys, talking to you while you're, while you're doing it or whatever.
Try to have conversations. Wouldn't it be funny? How people do like react videos? It'd be funny if somebody actually recorded themselves reacting.
That would be so
That'd probably
funny.
Be way too long. Maybe if they just did a couple minutes of it, but
that's pretty funny.
My cat is being a bit of a terror. So if you see me like, it's because he's
looking
like
around,
digging into boxes and making noise, and I don't know how loud it is, but how long have we?
40 minutes, 41 minutes just passed.
I feel like we're at a good stopping point.
I think so. I was gonna say, I think we could, let this say adieu, and thank you guys for chiming in. Well, mentally.
And emotionally.
Yeah, and emotionally.
And telepathically.
I was gonna say, we hear you. We feel. Maybe we feel you. I don't know. Who knows? Not gonna say. But thank you for coming back, for loving what we're doing. Really appreciate that, because some people could hate it, and some people may not get it. But gosh, thanks, and subscribe if you haven't already. Email us.
Yeah, sorta, kinda at gmail.com.
Ta-dang.
Yeah,
right.
We're if you're listening to this, just so you know, we're also on YouTube, or if you're watching us on YouTube, just so you know, you can listen to us wherever you catch your podcast. This is a double whammy.
Yeah, one-stop shopping. All right.
All right. Who knows where we'll go next week, but it's very likely it'll be in this similar vein, in that we'll talk about something. Oh, the fridge turned on. I thought I turned that. I didn't turn it down all the way.
Well,
anyway.
That's all right. But we're feeling philosophical, and kind of, that's what we're experiencing while we're doing all of this, and, so.
Yeah, I want to talk about the things that are helping me get through this, and also thrive. I want to talk about the things that are helping me thrive during this quarantine situation.
I like that.
Yeah,
I like that. You look pretty, Missy.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome.
You look fantastic, and I feel like we coordinate, and we never plan it. It just happens.
I love this shirt. I know we said we're going to get off, but I just be like, you look pretty, Bridget. I wanted to say.
You're too kind. Marshelle trimmed her own hair, and she did a fantastic job.
Thank you. I know. I kind of like it. And I got these new makeup brushes. I'm like, ooh, because I haven't worn it in a week. So, hey, I'm like, hey. And I'm wearing the shirt that Tommy wore in his, what was that? The Tiger King?
Oh, he did a cover of a Tiger King song. I had no idea that was the same shirt, though.
That's my shirt.
That's hilarious.
Isn't that funny?
It did look kind of blousy, whatever he had on, and now it all makes sense.
Well, he was a bit glam when he was young, so it works. All right,
we can get away
guys,
with it.
Next week, signing off, saluting you.
Yes, see you for episode 16 next week on Wednesday.
Yes. All right, bye.
Bye, guys.